The words cut through the dinner conversation like a knife. Honestly, Grandpa Robert is just old and irrelevant. His opinions belong in a museum. My grandson-in-law Taylor said it with a laugh, like it was a joke. But nobody was laughing. And what I said next, what I revealed in that moment, silenced the entire room and changed everything. My name is Robert, and I am 78 years old. I have learned that youth often mistakes experience for obsolescence, that confidence can look like wisdom until it is tested, and that sometimes the quietest people in the room are carrying the heaviest truths. This emotional story begins at a family dinner 3 months ago. My granddaughter, Emma, who is now 26, had invited everyone to her home. She and her husband Taylor had been married for 2 years, and this was their first time hosting the whole family. My son Michael and his wife Lisa with their daughter Alina, my daughter Sarah, and her husband David and me. Taylor worked in tech. He was bright, ambitious, and successful. He had strong opinions about everything: politics, economics, technology, culture, and he was not shy about sharing them. Throughout dinner, Taylor dominated the conversation. He talked about cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, and how his generation was going to solve all the problems my generation had created. The old systems are broken, he said confidently. Healthcare, education, retirement. It is all designed by people who do not understand the modern world. We need fresh thinking, new perspectives. I listened quietly, eating my meal. I had learned long ago that sometimes the best contribution you can make to a conversation is silence. But then Taylor turned his attention to me. Robert, you are being awfully quiet. What do you think about universal basic income? Though I guess your generation probably cannot even comprehend that concept. There was a slight edge to his tone. Emma touched his arm gently, a silent warning to be kind, but Taylor did not notice. I mean, no offense, he continued, but your generation had it easy. Cheap housing, stable jobs, pensions. You do not understand what it is like for us. Taylor, Sarah said carefully. That is not really fair. I am just being honest. Taylor interrupted. I love Grandpa Robert, but we have to acknowledge that his worldview is outdated. He grew up in a completely different era. Things he believed in, staying at one job for 40 years, traditional family structures, all that, it does not apply anymore. Michael tried to redirect the conversation. Taylor, maybe we should talk about something else, but Taylor was not finished. He looked around the table with a slight smile, the kind that comes from someone who believes they are the smartest person in the room. Look, I am not trying to be disrespectful, but honestly, Grandpa Robert is just old and irrelevant. His opinions belong in a museum. We need to stop letting older generations dictate how we should live our lives when they have no idea what our reality is like. The room went completely silent. Emma looked mortified. Sarah's face flushed with anger. Michael stared at his plate. Lisa's eyes were wide with shock. And I set down my fork and looked at Taylor. You are right, I said quietly. I am old, and maybe my opinions are outdated. Grandpa, you do not have to. Emma started, but I held up my hand gently. No, let me finish. I took a breath. Taylor, you are absolutely right that I come from a different era. And you are right that I do not fully understand your generation's challenges. But let me tell you something about my irrelevant life. Something I have never told most of this family. Taylor shifted uncomfortably. The confidence was starting to drain from his face. When I was 23 years old, younger than you are now, I was working 2 jobs to put myself through night school. My father had died, and my mother could not afford to keep our house. So I worked at a factory during the day and studied engineering at night. I slept for hours a night for 3 years. I paused, looking around the table. Even my own children were listening intently. They had never heard this story. When I finally graduated, I got a job at a small manufacturing company. Within 5 years, I had designed a component for industrial machinery that improved efficiency by 30%. That component is still used today in factories around the world. The company wanted to patent it under their name. I let them, because I needed the job. Taylor's face had gone pale. I spent 42 years at that company. You called it staying at one job for 40 years like it was a lack of ambition. But during those 42 years, I mentored 63 young engineers. I helped design safety protocols that prevented workplace accidents. I took pay cuts during recessions so younger employees would not be laid off. And when I retired, I donated half my pension to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students. The room was completely silent now. You said my generation had it easy. Let me tell you about easy. I watched my best friend die in Vietnam. I held my wife Margaret's hand as she took her last breath after a 2-year battle with cancer. I have buried my parents, 3 close friends, and more colleagues than I can count. I have lived through recessions, wars, social upheaval, and personal tragedies that would break most people. Tears were starting to form in Emma's eyes. Sarah was crying quietly. And you know what else? I paid off my student loans. All of them. It took me 9 years, but I did it. I bought my first house when I was 30. Not because housing was cheap, but because I saved every penny for 12 years. I worked weekends. I skipped vacations. I wore the same coat for 15 winters because I was sending money home to my mother. I looked directly at Taylor now. His earlier confidence had completely evaporated. So yes, Taylor, I am old. I am 78 years old. And maybe some of my opinions are outdated. Maybe I do not understand cryptocurrency or artificial intelligence the way you do. But irrelevant. Let me tell you what is relevant. I pulled out my phone. Yes, I have a smartphone. And opened my banking app. I turned the screen toward Taylor. Do you see this account? This is the scholarship fund I mentioned. It currently has $320,000 in it. Every month, I add more. That fund has put 14 students through college so far. Students who could not afford it otherwise. Students like I was 50 years ago. Taylor stared at the screen, speechless. And do you know who I just added to the list of scholarship recipients last month? You, Taylor. When Emma told me you were both struggling with your student loan debt, I quietly paid off $30,000 of it. I did not tell you because I did not want gratitude. I did it because that is what family does. Emma gasped. Grandpa, you did that. I did, and I did it not because I am trying to hold power over you or control your life. I did it because I remember what it feels like to be young and struggling and terrified that you will never get ahead. I did it because despite what Taylor thinks, I do understand what your generation is facing. Taylor's eyes were filled with tears now. He looked destroyed. I have never bragged about any of this. I continued, my voice gentle now. Not because I am humble, but because I was taught that real contribution does not require an audience. That real wisdom knows it does not have all the answers. That real strength is using whatever power you have to lift others up, not to prove how smart you are. I looked around the table at my family. I come to these dinners not to dispense outdated wisdom or judge your choices. I come because I love you, all of you, even when you do not understand me, even when you think I am irrelevant. This family drama story had reached its turning point, the moment when assumptions shatter and truth emerges. Taylor stood up, his hands shaking. Robert, I do not know what to say. I am so sorry. I was arrogant and cruel and completely wrong. You were scared, I said kindly. Scared that you were not living up to some standard. Scared that you were falling behind. Scared that older people are judging you. I understand that fear, Taylor. I have felt it too. Taylor walked around the table and knelt beside my chair. I have been so disrespectful to you. And you paid off my loans. Why would you do that after how I have treated you? Because that is what love does, I said simply. It shows up even when it is not appreciated. It gives even when it is not acknowledged. It forgives even when it is not asked. Emma was sobbing now. Sarah and David were holding each other. Michael had his arm around Lisa. Even my tough son-in-law David, who rarely showed emotion, was wiping his eyes. Grandpa, Emma said through her tears, I am so sorry. We have taken you for granted. We have treated your presence like it was just expected, like you were just furniture at family events. But you have been quietly taking care of all of us, and we did not even notice. I did not do it for recognition, I said. I did it because you were my family. And family shows up. Family gives. Family loves. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Taylor started coming to visit me regularly. Not out of obligation, but genuine interest. He asked about my life, my work, my experiences. He wanted to learn. I thought being modern meant rejecting everything old. He told me one afternoon. But I am starting to understand that wisdom is not about what generation you are from. It is about what you have learned and how you use it. Emma started a tradition of Sunday dinners at my house. The whole family would come. And instead of dominating conversations, we learned to listen to each other. Really listen. David's mother, Patricia, who had heard the story through Sarah, reached out to me. Robert, she said, I have always admired you. But now I understand why. You do not just talk about values, you live them. I am 78 years old, and I have learned this. respect is not about age, it is about character. And character is not what you say about yourself, it is what you do when nobody is watching. This touching family story taught me that every generation thinks they invented struggle, that they are the first to face impossible challenges. But struggle is universal. What changes is not the weight of the burden, but the shape it takes. Taylor was not wrong to question outdated systems. He was not wrong to want change. He was wrong to assume that age equals ignorance, that experience equals irrelevance. And here is what I learned. The quietest people in the room are often carrying the most. The ones who do not brag about their contributions are often the ones giving the most. Real power whispers, real wisdom listens. This relatable real-life story is about regret and forgiveness, about how quickly we judge what we do not understand, about how easily we dismiss people whose value is not immediately visible. Taylor learned that being right about one thing does not make you right about everything, that intelligence is not the same as wisdom, that youth is a gift, but so is age. And I learned that even at 78, I still have lessons to teach, not by lecturing, but by living, not by demanding respect, but by earning it quietly, day after day, year after year. If you are young and think older people are out of touch, take a moment to ask them about their lives. Really ask, really listen. You might be surprised by what they have accomplished, what they have survived, what they have given. And if you are older and feel dismissed, remember, your value is not determined by whether people recognize it. Your worth is not measured by applause. Keep showing up, keep giving, keep loving, because the most irrelevant people in the world are the ones who never contribute anything beyond their own opinions. And the most relevant are the ones who quietly change lives without ever asking for credit. That is the moral life lesson that silenced my family. That is the truth that changed Taylor's heart. And that is the wisdom I hope stays with you long after this story ends.